Hi, my name is Yasmin Tarehi, and this is Startup Confessionals, where we interview startup founders and entrepreneurs in the Middle East and Africa. We'll learn about some of the biggest lessons these founders discovered on their journey, from the personal to the professional, and share how they keep themselves motivated. Today's episode is with Mai Medhat, the CEO and co-founder of Eventtus, an events engagement platform and the leading event technology company in the Middle East. Eventtus was recently acquired in July 2021 by Bevy, a California-based enterprise software startup for virtual conferences and community events. Mai is an Egyptian tech entrepreneur who holds a computer engineering degree. She co-founded Eventtus with a mission to mobilize events after a personal experience at some events that used to be managed manually. And the company has raised $4 million plus in VC funding and is serving over 20,000 events in 60 plus cities. And Mai has just a number of accolades. She was named Entrepreneur of the Year by Arabian Business in 2016. She's been recognized by the Global Entrepreneurship Summit 2016 as one of the most promising entrepreneurs, and was even invited to represent Middle East startups in a panel with former President Barack Obama and Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook. And Eventtus was also named Startup of the Year in 2017 by Entrepreneur Middle East magazine. So I am so excited to welcome Mai to the show. So welcome, Mai.
Thank you, Yasmin. I'm very excited to be here.
Mai, can you briefly share for people that maybe have not used the Eventtus app, what is your value proposition in your own words with our audience?
Sure. So Eventtus is an event technology company. We help event organizers manage events and organize events. We take all the hassle of organizing events and we give them the technology and the tools to help them deliver that. Anything from ticketing, on-site registration, online registration. And then our flagship product is a mobile app for events where you can this is like pre-COVID and in-person events world where you can just like get directions to the venue, navigate through the venue and meet people, networking, recommendations. Like we help you find interesting people to meet or like-minded people to meet during the event based on shared interest, shared conversations and all of that. It's just like like the event feels more accessible on your pocket, and then with COVID, we transformed everything into virtual events. So we helped event organizers figure out what is virtual events, how can they do digital conferences, digital exhibitions, and we transformed our technology into virtual. We help it like most of our customers transfer from in-person to virtual events.
Got it. And so I'm so intrigued about your story and your journey because you started out serving just the Middle East market, correct? And now you are serving events in over 60 cities. So I'm curious, like, how did you go from more localized events to serving the greater Middle East and Africa? Like, what was that journey like? If you could talk to us about starting in sort of a smaller scale and then expanding into a more global scale. And then you kind of touched on the pandemic, which we'll get into later. But I think, that to me feels like a very interesting story, like how you were able to service so many events over the last couple of years and how you've grown.
Sure. So when we started Eventtus, I remember like me and my co-founder Nihal, we spent around a year just going to events everywhere. We wanted to see what's happening, what's this industry, what technology is out there, what they are using. We traveled everywhere. We went to anywhere from like we were based in Cairo to Dubai to London to US to even Kenya. So we tried to be open-minded about it and try to understand and learn about the industry and the technology out there. And we built back then we built an MVP, and we were just using that as an excuse to go and speak to any event organizer or any event attendee and get feedback from them, and just just building on the product vision. And then once we had this MVP worked out, we started working this with a lot of local organizers and event organizers. And it was great, great feedback, great testimonial to the product. And then once we had that, we moved out to Dubai, because Dubai is the hub for events in the Middle East. And we knew that like most of the events, like the big events, big names, is happening in Dubai. Even like when we talked corporate events, Dubai was the hub for all of that. And from there, we really started like to kick off our journey, and not only locally, but regionally. But one thing we did very well is we depended on network, like locally. We started with the entrepreneurship and startup related conferences and events, and we could scale within this community because there's a network. Like we know an event organizer who can connect us to someone or recommend us to someone if they are happy with the service they get. And then once we secure that, we try to get out. Like we were definitely serving other clients in other industries, but this was the kickstart for us. So within this community, we asked them to introduce us to the same community, but in a different location. And this is like, it was great network effect. So we got that in Dubai. And then from Dubai, we managed to get some events in the US and UK and here and there. And then like at a certain point, it's just like distribution and sales play after that.
Wow. So fascinating. So, at the time, you said that you did a lot of due diligence. You were going to all these different conferences to check and see like how people were, kind of operating at events and other sort of event platforms. What would you say, like when you were building your product, like what did you think people really wanted at the time? And like how have you continued to get feedback from the market over the years?
Sure. So from day one, we wanted to build like a networking and engagement tool for events. This is like what we were passionate about, like connecting people. Like events is a great place for people to just go mingle. You're going to event because you have some interest and some knowledge and you want to share it with other people, but at the same time you want to learn. And like I love the serendipity that happens at the event. Like I met my first investor at an event. I had a lot of like business relationships, business deals, and even made friends out of events. So we believed in this particular value, and this is the one thing that we wanted to build on and help people capitalize during events. And this is how we were getting feedback as well, because we wanted the app to be as interactive as possible and help people achieve that. And like the success, like the happy moment and the success stories we were celebrating as a company is when someone like a company who's exhibiting at an event and they come to me and say like, hey, I met this person and we closed the deal a month after the event and this is the value. So this is like my biggest happy moment or proud moment out of what we do. But at the same time, like going back to the roots, when we were a small company trying to pitch this to event organizers and clients, everyone wants to just sell a ticket. They want to make sure, or there is like uncertainty about if the event will happen or not. So they wanted to make sure to secure attendance for the event first, and then think about connections, networking, and recommendations, and helping attendees enjoy their time during the event. So that was a big concern out there. So whenever we go to speak to someone, that was like the biggest concern at the beginning. So we built it. We built a ticketing and registration module to help to at least unlock this uncertainty and help them sell more tickets and reach more people to subscribe to their event. And that was a gateway for us at the beginning to onboard more customers. And then this ticketing solution, it scaled on its own and it became one of the biggest revenue streams we have.
Wow. And May, so I imagine at the time, there probably were not many competitors in the markets that were doing what you were doing in the region. So I'm wondering, like, was that helpful? Was that an advantage for you, or did you have to also educate the market on how Eventtus worked? Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, of course, there was only international competition. I don't know if I should say names or not, uh,
Yeah, go
but
for it.
there was like Eventbrite. Like everyone was comparing us to Eventbrite, and at some point, even to make it easier for people, we said like, yes, we are the Eventbrite of the Middle East, and we have ticketing, but not only ticketing. We're bigger. We're more. We have more, and we can help you in your event with this part, which is ticketing and registration, but we can also help you recognize an ROI from the attendees, recognize an ROI from the sponsors and exhibitors, and help them make the most out of that. If a sponsor spent X amount of money to sponsor your event, they would love to know what's the reach, how people are interacting with their posts, or are they seeing the logo or recognizing or taking any of the services they are providing. And 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 only then we have this hook, or they understand what we're doing. And I think it was interesting at the beginning. And then by far the biggest channel we had is word of mouth. Like when someone attends an event as an attendee and they experience the product and experience the app, they go and tell their company if they are organizing another event, or they tell their friends about or who are organizing another event, how enjoyable was their experience, because they had this cool app or this cool registration system or whatever solution they experienced. And that was the biggest like distribution channel for us.
Fascinating. Wow. Yeah, the network effect piece is very, very real, and I think a lot of people sometimes don't realize that until much later in the game. So, um, May, I want to talk a little bit about the fundraising piece, because I know that that's a question a lot of people have. Like, how do you go about fundraising, especially if, let's say, investors are not in your network? You mentioned earlier that you actually met one of your first investors at an event, which is amazing. But can you talk to us about what it was like to actually secure your first round of funding and what you did prior to that? What was it like to bootstrap, and how are you able to recruit the right people? Because I think for people who also may be interested in starting their own company or just interested in the process, I think that piece, the financing piece, is like a kind of a black hole for a lot of people. So if you could walk us through your journey and tell us, what you learned and how your priorities shifted based on which stage of the company you were at.
Yeah, imagine this black hole in 2013, for example. This is when we raised our first round. It was definitely a black box. There wasn't a lot of VCs or finance accessible in the market, but we knocked all the doors. We tried to keep. We were a couple of engineers. We managed to attract like few more people who are interested in what we're doing, like friends and people that we know from the network that got excited about the product and the mission, and what we are trying to build. And this is how we put like the initial MVP. And we just were like very real about what we were trying to build, and we pitched literally to everyone, and any opportunity, we took any opportunity. um, we used it as like it either it can be a feedback that we can learn from, or it can turn into a mentorship session, or it can turn into like a real funding opportunity. So we were just knocking on all doors. um, and I remember like the first angel network that accepted to fund us. I think we got the big yes from them because the passion we had for the product and for the industry. We tried to, like, we rehearsed it many times, but I don't think they were convinced because the pitch deck or um, the answers we gave them, as much they were hooked in terms of like the passion and the vision, and it's something real, like they can relate to. Like I just had this session, like a panel with our first investor, like last week, and I heard him saying that. He said like, we screened many companies, and then like two female founders, engineers, very young, very early in their career, and they came to us and they were pitching with a lot of passion, and they told us a story that we can believe in, like we can relate. Again, like Cvent or Eventbrite, these are the biggest companies in our industry, and they can relate to, like saying we will be this company in the Middle East and then we will scale it internationally. So they can relate to the story. And then we can add other components, and it's a big market. So we somehow ticked most of the boxes they had. So they said yes to that. Um, and then I think with the next round of funding, we were looking for a different stage as well, like different connections, different network, different type of money or VC funding. So at each stage, you try to like at the early stage, angels and incubators, they can be very helpful to open your network, because especially for someone who's in his first time to be an entrepreneur or first time founder, because this is an ecosystem and it's a community, and you need to be inside the community to know a lot of people who can introduce you and help you through the doors to meet the right person or the right VC, which was very useful. And then with the next round, you look for something different. And then with the next round, you look for something different. But I think with each round, we try to unlock a milestone. So at least we achieve something meaningful from the previous funding.
Yeah, wow. It's such an interesting journey because, like you said, in 2013, the black hole was pretty large, and it's just, it's fascinating that the network effects and also just knowing the right people makes it that much easier. And I imagine, after your first round, having that vote of confidence also just like in the perception of others makes it easier for them to trust, right, in the next round. So I actually wanted to talk a little bit about something that we don't usually talk about on a lot of these startup shows, which is like the relationship that you have with your co-founder. I think, you guys started together early on, and oftentimes, there's a lot of people that say, even if you have a great product, if you don't have the right team, then it kind of crumbles and falls apart. So I'm curious to peel back the layers of how you and your co-founder connected, and also how you were able to grow in your relationship to be able to even create a company like Eventtus and to hire the people that you have hired over the years. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure, 100%. I agree. It's a very important topic that's sometimes not very highlighted from startup talks. Like, to be honest, I wouldn't imagine we would be here talking on this show if it wasn't for the relationship I have with Nihad, my co-founder. She's a longtime friend, where we know each other probably for like 20 years. And because we have this relationship, it was very easy to trust. I think trust is the biggest trait in a relationship between co-founders. Like, I can blindly trust her in everything when it comes to product decisions, finance, like anything. I would trust her with my life. And this relationship is very important because she is also my support system. Like, whenever I feel down, she is the reason that gets me out of bed and keeps me working and delivering on the vision that we have, or the vision we agreed on. and also in terms of skills, like this is the emotional part and the support part, but in terms of like skills and the actual day-to-day work, she completes me. She is the product mastermind. She knows how to listen to customers, listen to feedback, and build a great product. The one thing I'm grateful for, and probably that brought us where we are right now, is we build a great technology. We build a great product that everyone likes, and it was again the reason that we are acquired by a Silicon Valley company, because they like the product.
Right. Yeah. And I am also just curious about, you talked about the days when things are particularly tough. Can you talk to us a little bit more about like what you do to sort of stay focused, especially when things are tough? Maybe in a post-acquisition world, it's not as tough as it used to be, but in your earlier days, how did you motivate yourself, and what sort of sacrifices did you make? Because I think that's also something a lot of people don't touch on, the things that they give up, or the things that, the things that they did not do because they started a company. So I'm just curious if you could talk to us about that as well.
Yeah, of course. It's I don't know where to start. uh, yeah, like at some point as an entrepreneur or a founder, you need to make peace with things that you would be missing out, um, like friends reunions, parties, birthdays, or family gatherings, and all of that, because you're working. And it's tough. Like having a social life is a very, especially at the beginning, like in the very early days, like in the very, maybe like couple of years or maybe more. um, but but at some point I had to move out of Cairo to Dubai, and I was just living there for some time. I spent like 5 years over there, and yeah, I just made peace with the fact that I will be missing out on this. But on the other side, having healthy relationships makes it easier. Like if your family understand what you're doing and what you're working on, and your friends, you'll be losing like people who doesn't understand this on the way. But if they understand, if the relationship is healthy, they would understand and support you, and if they believe in what we're doing, that would be at least relieving. But on the other side, what I try to do is having quality time. Like whenever I have a chance to spend more time with them, I would be all in. I wouldn't be like working or checking emails or thinking about work while spending time with them. And I think that the one thing I realized right now, like after spending all this time, is it's a marathon. It's not like a sprint. It's not a couple of years that you've put everything and you just focus on work. Like like founders, depression is a real thing. Founders, I don't know. Yeah, it's very hard. It's very hard, and sometimes, like at some point, we spent together, me and my co-founder, and we said like we need to take breaks, and we need to take regular breaks, and we need to stop working on weekends because it's not healthy, and we're not as productive as we do. As we take breaks, and then like at some point in the middle of the journey, we decided to do that, and there's exceptions, of course, but that was maybe the one thing that helped us to keep going and continue the journey.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Wow. So it's so beautiful to just hear the connection between the people within the company that really allow you to express the fullness of who you are as a founder, as a engineer, as a product person, as a CEO. So just interesting. And May, I want to talk a little bit about, we're sort of running out of time, but I have a lot of questions to ask you. But maybe this will be the last one, or one of the last ones. I wanted to talk a little bit about your acquisition, which is so big and so huge and just happened a couple of months ago. So can you talk to us about what it was like, and if you can share why you decided to, why now, like why this year?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, um, it happens. I think like I know the founder. So this company Bevy that acquired Eventtus is they were one of our customers at Eventtus for 4 years, and so we have this relationship with them. We know like Bevy has a startup. Startup Grind is a sister company. Bevy is founded by the same founders and the same team who started Startup Grind. And Startup Grind is one of our customers for the past 4 years. So we know them, we know the team. Like we went to their events. They use the product. They love the product. We have this relationship, and we started talking. Like I started talking with Derek, the CEO, and we really liked. Like we had a lot in common in terms of like value, in terms of vision, in terms of even the culture, like the company culture, and we have been talking since like early 2020 because that was their biggest event pre-pandemic. It was in February 2020. One of the last events I attended in person, and it made sense. Like with COVID and with everything that's happening, and we post shifted into virtual and. Like when we talked this year, it made sense. Like together, if we combine the two products, if we join forces, we can really take over this industry and deliver on the vision that we have, because we had shared values, we had shared culture, shared vision, so it made sense. And for us as founders, it made sense as well, because from day one, our vision was to help transform the industry and help event organizers everywhere. And with Bevy, we can now do that on a much larger scale.
Mm. Wow, beautiful. Thanks so much for sharing that story. That's so impressive. And I think anyone who's able to build a company from idea to concept to product to all these rounds of funding and then acquisition. I mean, you've seen more in the world of the startup space than I think most people. So congratulations, May, and to the team at Eventtus. I'm just so proud of you and really also inspired. So unfortunately, we are running out of time, but maybe you could just share your one last takeaway on what keeps you motivated, or maybe your takeaway that you'd want to share to folks who are thinking about starting their own company. And what would be your words of advice to them?
Enjoy the journey. It's very hard. There's a lot of ups and downs. Just enjoy it, and don't stress yourself. Don't just enjoy the journey, and keep believing in what you're building.
Amen. Amazing. Awesome. Well, May, thank you so much. And where can people find you? Are there any resources that you can point folks to in order to learn more about you?
Mai Medhat on LinkedIn, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I think it's always the same name. Mai, Mai Medhat, Medhat.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time, May. And I learned a lot, and I'm sure that our audience has as well. And so thanks again.
Thank you, Yasmin. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And for our audience, thanks for joining and for listening to Startup Confessionals.